Social media is hard, especially as a newbie artist when you're just starting out to try and sell yourself. Let me help you a little bit. Here are 10 things that I've learned over my past 2 years as a content creator on social media. And there is a bonus tip at the end. It's a pretty useful one, so stay tuned. It's just a start. Number 1, it will take time and consistent work to get a substantial following. There is no way around that. And with a substantial following, I don't just mean getting a few hundred followers. I mean like getting a few thousand followers at the very least and getting people that regularly interact with your content. That takes time because those are relationships that you have to build. Building any kinds of long-lasting relationship, it takes time. You need to first establish the first contact with somebody who might potentially actually enjoy your content. And then you need to keep showing up regularly and interact with that people when they leave comments and just be there and be present and be visible again and again and again until they want to come back and until they want to keep coming back. And this already kind of ties into my second point, which is that a consistent posting schedule will be useful. It is. And this is something that I have learned over the past 2 years, especially because it might not be the biggest deal on TikTok as long as you still kind of regularly post. It doesn't matter if you post on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, or a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Friday. Like, TikTok is not as extreme on that as long as you just post continuously and regularly, and as long as you still interact with your following when you post especially. But if we're talking other platforms, Instagram and especially YouTube, their consistent schedules are important. Like, I'm not sure about the algorithm on Instagram because Instagram is not my main focus, but on YouTube, the algorithm actually does reward you for posting regularly. And regularly for you doesn't have to be like 3 long videos a week and 10 shorts. It doesn't have to be. I'm not that extreme either. That's not wrong. You do you, but that is something that is more along the lines of actual content creator as a full-time job. Consistent can also be you post a cover every 2 weeks or every once a month and maybe a short or 2 a week. As long as you're consistent with it, that is rewarded by the algorithm on YouTube. And it's not just the algorithm that you kind of want to take into consideration here. It is also your community. Like, again, TikTok and Threads and Twitter, or maybe formerly X, are maybe slightly different here because that is not so much according to structures and, your following might see it, might not see it. If they interact, they'll see more of you. It's a whole other topic, but it gives your followers a structure. It gives them something to look forward to. I would say this is particularly a thing on YouTube where if you're posting long form content, that is the number one thing that you want to focus on. Make it consistent. Even if that means you only post 1 or 2 videos a month, make it consistent. I feel like on Instagram, people really enjoy this regular scheduling too. Like, if you post a reel every Tuesday, for example, people like knowing when it's coming out, and people who actually start following you, they will be looking forward to that Tuesday, and they'll be like, oh, I look forward to what XYZ is posting, and I wonder what it's going to be this week. Just make it consistent. You will be rewarded for that eventually. Something that I suggest to friends that come to me for social media advice is to go through some trial and error with your content, especially if you're starting out, but just kind of continuously do that here and there, especially on TikTok, because TikTok is a very good place to test your content. Just go through some trial and error and see what is content that you like creating, what is content that tends to perform better than the rest. And in the end, I think it's important that you keep a balance between this is content that I like to create and make, and this is content that people like to watch. Like, if it's not fun for you because you take out the content that you like making, then people will notice that eventually and they'll stop watching. And the same goes for the other way around. If you don't occasionally post stuff that people actually like watching, like the audience that you have already gained at that point, either you haven't found your right audience yet, or maybe sometimes you just need to suck it up and post content that people actually like watching. Sometimes, of course, those two can overlap. Like find your formula, find what works for you. And I personally, I like creating most of the content that I make, but I also know that sometimes I'll enjoy certain kinds of content that I regularly create more, and sometimes I'll enjoy it less. Not because the content has any different kind of quality, but just because life's an up and down, and so is content creation. The next one is perhaps kind of something that people already know, but it's also something that as a content creator, you need to be reminded of. And you can get sucked in so much into social media and content creation that even I sometimes have to remind myself of this. Social media and real life are not the same thing. Social media is social media. Social media is on your phone, on your laptop, wherever you put it. But it's not your real life. It is a subsection of a small part of your life, a very, very small snippet. Don't let social media take over your life. Make sure that you actually get the chance to live a little outside of that and to not make your social media your whole real life identity. It's just social media. Followers, likes, those are just numbers. And of course, we always want to maximize our follower, our like count, how many comments we get. We want to maximize them. We want to provide good content. But for that, we also need to have a little bit of balance and need to be able to see things outside and of social media and experience real life, because that is often what inspires us. And also, only ever being on social media is not usually very good for our mental health. So remember that social media is not everything, and that your real in-person life, in the end, is more important. The next point is something to be taken with a grain of salt and something to be considered very carefully. And that is that controversial opinions and sometimes rage baiting. I personally do not like rage baiting, but that's a different topic. But controversial opinions can get you a lot of exposure very quickly. But at the same time, I want to remind you that controversial opinions, voicing them, yes, it can get you a lot of engagement. But please be ethical and careful about it. If you do it the wrong way, you can literally get kicked off of a platform for, for bullying, for harassment, for spreading false claims, for those kinds of things. So be very careful how you go about this. Very, very careful. You have been warned. Done the right way and the right careful and ethical way, it can get you plenty of exposure. I have posted controversial opinions videos before. That's why I am saying be careful and be ethical about it. Mine were not really very controversial opinions, especially in the grand scheme of things, but within the fan community that I sometimes create content in, some of them were considered very controversial, and I got a lot of negative comments from that. I got a lot of hatred. I had to block a lot of people. At the same time, one of those videos got for example, on TikTok, it got about 10,000 views. It got hundreds of comments and lots of likes. But for that one video alone, I had to block a dozen people. Just so that you're aware, a video doesn't have to blow up massively to get you a lot of exposure and to get you a lot of negativity. Did I also gain support and really have in-depth conversations because of that with other people that already follow me, but that have maybe never spoken up before? Yes. Controversial opinions, for some reason, they can get you in touch with other of your followers that you maybe haven't really connected very deeply with yet, but suddenly they feel spoken to. That's why I'm saying create different kinds of content and test them out and see what works for you. But always be careful and ethical about it. That's a very, very important point. And in this vein, also be prepared to block a lot of people. It is okay to have discussions, but again, don't let it take over your life. Don't let the negative energy from negative people or hateful and disrespectful people take you down in real life. Just because somebody is nasty, block them. That's what the block button is there for. Also, and this is also an important point, reporting is an option if it gets too much. Like if a person is being genuinely just a bully, or if they're being racist or something like that, or discriminatory in any kind of way, or spreading completely false information in a dangerous way, report them. That's always a good option. The next point is occasionally throwing in a bit of trendy content and topics can actually help you with your exposure. Like, you don't have to follow every trend. Actually, please don't. That's not going to lead you anywhere. And it kind of makes the cohesion of your content suffer too. But occasionally doing a little bit of a random trend that you just stumble across and you like it, or a trend where it doesn't really fit with your normal content, but it is something that's loosely related to it. I'll give an example of that. My example is that I post within the K-pop community, especially within the ARMY community, quite a lot. And loosely related to that is the K-beauty community, which I personally like watching, and I follow a lot of K-beauty content creators on TikTok in this case. And a current trend kind of is, or a very recent trend was, to try out a filter like the Tear foundation filter. I tried that out. I was one of the first ones to actually try the filter, and that's part of the reason why I got like 6,000 views or something, and quite a lot of comments actually too. So, this is a fun, small thing that you can do. It's not going to cause controversy. It's literally just you having a little bit of fun and showing a slightly different side of you, but still within the framework of what you usually do, like in the grander scheme of things, and throwing in a trendy thing here and there between your regular content kind of mixes things up, keeps it fresh. It's kind of unexpected, but not in a bad way. So I personally would recommend it. But if you don't feel like doing it, of course, don't. Honestly, for all of the tips that I'm sharing here, you take it or you leave it. You can try all of them out if you want and see what sticks, or you don't. It's always up to you. The next point I want to talk about is platforms and which platforms. And this is maybe actually a bit of a controversial opinion. I personally actually would say pick 2 platforms. Start with those, really properly learn how to work those in your favor as a content creator, and then expand. Then continue on with whatever else you want to add to that. And I would say, for example, platforms like Instagram and TikTok, they have fairly similar features nowadays, but they still work differently concerning how engagement works, concerning how people get exposed to your content, concerning a lot of different things. So the learning process doesn't mean it has to take you like 2 years to master these 2 platforms that you choose. Give it a few weeks, learn those. Of course, you can create other platforms on, like, for example, Threads or on X. But I personally always think that it can be overwhelming if you try too many at once. I personally started out just with Instagram and YouTube, and I would say, honestly, it's kind of 2 categories of content creation that are out there and that are popular right now, which is the text or mainly text-based content on X and on Threads versus the mainly visual content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So I would say pick either category and stick with that one for a little bit before you want to introduce yourself to the next one. Of course, it's fine to want to do it all at once, and you can do that too. But I found as a content creator that a lot of people who around me who have tried that got overwhelmed very quickly and then stopped creating altogether. Sometimes only for a little while. Sometimes they stopped creating for months and months and then returned to only one of those platforms. So figure out how your schedule and how your content works for one area of those platforms, and then go over to learning more about another. My next point might be one that people are kind of going to hate me for. But the thing is, you can't cheat. the algorithm. You cannot cheat the algorithm. You can't. It's not possible. Can you work with the algorithm? Can you create content in favor of the algorithm? Yes, absolutely. But you cannot cheat it, and you never will be able to cheat it. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. I wish it did, but then, we'd all try to be cheating the algorithm, and somebody at some point would find a way, and then everyone would find out about it, and then it would flood, and it would be the same as it is now. So don't even try to cheat the algorithm. You're going to sink hours into researching, how do I cheat the algorithm? And you're not going to be any the wiser. You can work with the different algorithms on each platform, and you can watch content about it that helps, or you can watch content on each platform that is very popular and see what they do and try to adapt it to your content. But don't try cheating the algorithm. It's not going to get you anywhere. Next, we're getting to some actual content creation related things. And the first one is that there are roughly, and everyone calls these a little bit differently and everyone classes it a bit differently, but there are roughly 3 different buckets or categories that content creation falls into. Those are entertain, inform, and solve. And I'll talk a little bit about each of those, but the important thing is that you want to focus, especially on the likes of YouTube, you want to focus on 1, maximum 2 of those categories and really make them your own. And that is how you grow a channel, because that is a focus. And it will make a lot of sense in just a second when I start explaining that. So the first category is entertain. Duh. Entertain it's very easy to understand. Comedy, for example, is entertainment. Singing covers or singing your own songs is entertainment. Making short films is also entertaining. That is roughly some of the things that can go into this, like comedy, funny scenes, anything that entertains, anything that you personally would, for example, watch for pure entertainment, not for trying to solve a problem or trying to gain information. The next subcategory is inform. I feel like this is also very self-explanatory. It's kind of educating people. For example, you are trying to teach people how to sing with twang or how to work with a specific DAW as a producer. Those are informational videos. Those fall into this bucket. It's kind of you're trying to teach somebody something. And usually the third category is called solve, the solving category, where people have a specific problem and you teach them how to solve this problem. I know that inform and solve kind of overlap, but they also don't necessarily have to, because with informing and educating and teaching, you're not really necessarily always solving a problem. With solving a problem, you are solving a problem, but through that you often have to teach people something or just show them a simple hack. If it makes sense like that. For example, one problem solving is, how do I tie the string of an acoustic guitar at the end so that it sticks and when you're restringing the guitar and that it doesn't come out again? You're solving the problem of somebody who has never done that before. And it is a way of, yes, teaching them, but it's also here the focus is mainly on they have a problem. They can't do it themselves alone for the first time. So you're solving their problem. As you can see, the categories can totally overlap a little bit. And sometimes there is gray area. So it could be either or, especially I feel like with inform and solve. But, entertainment and informing/teaching doesn't have to be mutually exclusive either. That's why I'm saying it usually is grouped into these 3 buckets. But that doesn't mean that you have to stick to one exclusively, because if you want to be funny and make jokes and be entertaining while teaching, that's perfectly fine too. You find your style. And this is just a guideline of what you could do, of a way you could group content and see which speaks most to me and what do I want to create. And then you create that and you see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, then you change things up. I think it's good to know about this, but it's also good to not be too stuck up about it and just go your way, go your path. You'll do fine. You'll be fine. My next one is one that I know people are always tired of when they hear it, but you need to hear it, and that is batch create content. Especially if we're talking shorts/reels here, batch create them. It is going to save you a lot of time and hassle. I'll tell you very quickly how I do this. I sit down, I grab a piece of paper, I write down between like 6 and 12 ideas for shorts for each bucket. And that way I will have enough content for a few weeks at least, because usually for each bucket, I have one video per week. I have maybe content for like 8 to 10 weeks, and that's good. And creating batches that are larger than that, then like larger than for 3 months and planning more than 3 months ahead, it's maybe not necessarily always the best idea, because you might want to factor in that in 3 months your life could be looking entirely different, or maybe things have changed and you're not a fan of a person that you used to make content about anymore. So factor in that batch creating is a good idea, but don't batch create too far in advance because things can change. The next thing that I do after I've written it down, I set a date on which I will film all these videos. It's usually a weekend day. I will get up early. I will film all of it. Filming shorts, especially once you're practiced a little bit, it doesn't actually take that long. Maybe you want to then edit all the footage right after when it's still, fresh in your mind, and then upload it to different platforms. On certain platforms like on YouTube and on Instagram, you can schedule shorts and reels. On TikTok, you cannot, but you can upload them already, so that for the time when you want to post them, when it's on your schedule, you literally just click release. And that's not very difficult. That's very doable. That way you will have most of your content planned out. Like say you plan out for 8 weeks of content. That way you only have to do that like 6 times a year. That's not very difficult. And it doesn't take, again, as I said, it doesn't take as long as people usually think it does. Like I sit down and write down my shorts ideas, usually while I'm watching a movie or a series in the background that I've already watched before. So it's a very casual thing to do that takes 20, 30 minutes. Then I film that takes maybe an hour. And, of course, putting on makeup or picking clothes and stuff like that takes a little bit of time too, but it doesn't take as long as some people might think it does. Of course, this varies from person to person, and I have grown very efficient at it because I've been doing this for a while. It is a practice makes better and quicker thing. So the sooner you start practicing this, the better you'll get and the quicker you'll get better. And now to my little bonus tip. This is so important, and I don't see enough people talking about it. This is about when you're already creating and putting out content. Engage with the people that comment. Engage with the people that like your content regularly. Engage with the people that are giving you their time. Engage with them. You are trying to grow relationships here. Of course, this is perhaps more of a fan community relationship, like a fan artist relationship. So maybe you're not looking for friends or acquaintances, though that can, of course, also happen if you regularly communicate with someone. But if you are not, especially when you're still a very, very, very small artist who has a very small following, if you're not interacting with the people at all or very limited that are commenting, especially when you're not yet getting a lot of traction, how do you think you're ever going to establish a proper deep connection with them? I have seen artists on social media make this mistake. They have like 1,000, 2,000 followers on TikTok. TikTok is usually where I see this. And people leave comments and they don't reply back to them ever. They don't even like any of the comments. And then I'm usually like, oh, maybe they have had something come up in their lives and they just haven't had the time to check TikTok. But then I look at one of their other videos or multiple of their other videos and they don't ever reply to anyone. They don't ever like a comment. Then I feel like this is not giving, I want to build a connection with you. This is giving, I want your time and I want your money and I want your likes and your comments and your attention, but I will not give you anything in return, just so you know that. It comes across as arrogant, even if it's maybe not meant in that way. And I think that some people on social media are not aware of this. They're genuinely not aware of it, but it does not come across in a good way. I always try to, or mostly always try to reply to all the comments I get, especially if there are comments where people are actually like talking to me and not just sending me an emoji, especially the talking ones. I always reply to those, except during times where I've had videos that have gone viral and where I have like 80,000 views and like multiple hundred comments in a day. In a day or two, I can't comment on all of those. And of course, then there will probably be a few that you can literally just filter out and block and stuff like that. Interact with people. Interact with the people that are trying to interact with you. Interact with other small artists in your niche that you find on social media, because that maybe you'll do a collaboration and even just for a cover, and then you will be exposed to their fan community and you can build relationships with them. Just interact as much as you can. Of course, don't drain yourself. Don't spend all your time on that and thinking I have to instantaneously answer every single comment that comes in. Answer the comments in your time. And if that means people have to wait a day or two for a response just because social media is difficult for you and it burns you out easily, then that's it. That's fine. But just make sure that you're not leaving people hanging all the time if you want something in return from them. Social media too is a give and take, and social media success too, especially at the beginning, is a give and take. And it is not just a give and take in the sense that you give them great content. Even if you do, they still want to have a little bit of human interaction with you. Once you grow bigger, once you have a lot of followers, once you get tons of likes and comments on every single video or almost every single video, people will understand that you can't comment on every single comment that is left. They'll be happy if they can just read what you comment on 3 or 4 other comments and, still feel kind of a connection. And it will feel special then that certain people get an answer, and people will feel lucky that they got picked to have an answer from you. But until you are at that point, connection is where it's at. What you want in order to really build a substantial music career is that you want to connect with a few specific people that will listen to your music, that will buy your merch, that will watch your content. Like, it's literally way preferable to have 1,000 people like that. And even if you only have 2,000 followers or 3,000 followers, and you have 1,000 people that are very, very interactive with you, that buy everything you do, that listen to everything you do, watch everything you do, that can make you a living as a singer. That alone can be enough to make you a living as a singer. Whereas having 5,000 casual fans that just occasionally listen to your stuff and maybe a few of them occasionally buy some of your stuff, it's way less likely to make you anything near a living. Trust me when I say that the super fans, which I'm talking about here, they're the ones that you can build, especially at your beginning. The more you connect with those when you're still small, the more likely it is that they will later on become your super fans because they connected with you. They feel so connected to you still, and they want to stay connected by buying your things, by interacting with you in any indirect way that is possible. And then maybe occasionally getting rewarded with a comment or a thank you to everyone who bought XYZ or listened to XYZ. Pay attention to that now. Build yourself those fans up from the ground now. It will be your basis and it might be your livelihood if you do it right. These are my 11 tips on how you can make it much more easily as a newbie in the music industry who's trying to make social media work for them. It's not easy. It takes time. Sometimes it's really frustrating and annoying. I get that. It is that for me too sometimes, and I've been doing this for quite a while now. Don't lose hope. It does get better. It does get easier the more you do it. And also, the more you do it, the more you realize it's just one subsection of your life. It's just a small part of your life. Yes, it can very positively contribute towards your career, but it's not It's not everything. There are so many other avenues that you need to work on. Don't sweat it. Just try it. Try it and keep trying. You will get there. Have faith. You will get there, and have fun. That's very important. If you have any other tips that you would suggest, leave a comment. If you think that one of these tips that I just mentioned was very especially good, tell me which one you liked most. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.